All right, so here are the tools you're going to need. You're definitely going to need a crimper to put on the connector. And I use the small wire cutters. I have a large needle nose for crimping or squishing the wire. And then I use this box cutter to cut the outer sleeve off. And then of course you need the connectors. These connectors that I have come in two parts. You have the inner part and then the outer part. So you feed the wires into the inner part and then you shove that inner part into the outer part and crimp it down. The other connectors I've used before, you pass the wires through the connector and then you crimp it down. You cut off the ends. So either way, we're going to be doing a Cat 6 cable. Let me get this stuff out of the way. Oh, and if you have one of these, all the better. These are for testing the cable once you've completed it. You plug one end here, turn it on, and then it goes through and tells you if all the wires are connected correctly. Very useful. The cable we're using is a Cat 6 outdoor water blocking UV protected blah blah blah. It's made for outdoors. It's very high quality. Lots of what I was running is a lot of IP cameras, so I was using a lot of outdoor runs, and I would highly recommend that you get a high quality cable, especially if you're going outdoors, because if you don't, you'll be replacing it in 2 years like I did. First thing I like to do is to find my wire cutter. Here it is. I could use this, but I'll use this. I use this because I've had this God knows how long and the blade is completely dull, so it's perfect for this. All right, so take your box cutter. I like to give a nice generous length of wire. So it depends how sharp your blade is on how hard you want to press into the cable. What you want to do is you want to cut away the outer insulation without nicking the wire in the inside. So we're going to be feeding those little wires into this little tiny holes here, and they're all kind of twisted. So you want to have a nice generous length of wire. So let's cut it, let's say here. You just want to press into it gently, and you want to make sure you go around completely in a circle, like completely perpendiculars. So see, I missed. I didn't go around perpendicular, so my two lines don't line up. So I'm going to do it again, and you want to make sure you're going around in a perfect circle. Okay, so give it a little twist. Pull this off. Okay, so if all this came off, that means you probably went in too deep and you probably nicked one of the wires. So you want it to be a little bit of a struggle. Now you want to keep this, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we got a little bit of a string here. Let's go ahead and cut that off. And then we have this little outer thing here. So sometimes you can just pull it off like that. Sometimes you have to cut it off. So looks like I didn't nick any of the wires, so we're good. So let's keep going. All right, so what I'm going to do is pull these down like this. I'm going to use my little plier. So I'm going to use my little wire cutters here, cut that center core off. Let's bring them back. Okay, so now the tricky part is to separate all these wires and to get them straight. Now you'll never make them straight, but you can at least make them as straight as you can. So what I like to do is you kind of start it with your thumb here and then use this to go down the wire to separate the two wires. So that's really useful in getting the two wires separated. So what I like to do is then squeeze it with my fingers while I'm pulling on the wire. So squeeze and pull, and you see how that straightens it out. You don't want to pull it too hard, but you want to give it a little bit of friction, generate some heat in there. And the friction and the heat and the pulling make that wire straighter. Not straight, but straighter. So same thing here. I usually do 1 or 2 pulls. That's usually good enough. All right, let's do the rest of them. I'll probably speed through this. Okay, so we're done with this. We don't need that anymore. So I like to just kind of like wiggle and give them a little bit of a pull, make them straight as I can. Okay, so now here's my little cheat sheet. This is a T 568B. I don't know what that means, but there's usually an A and a B. One starts with the green white, one starts with the orange white. Me personally, I just decided at some point in my life that the orange white was going to be my thing, and there you go. So just pick one, stick with it the rest of your life, and you're good. I have nothing to do with cablesupply.com. Obviously, I stole this from their website, and there you go. So what I like to do is I like to kind of put them in the right order first. And as I put them in the right order, I like to untwist them in the most logical way I can, so that when you crimp down the connector, you don't have too much crossover twisting. Okay, so you see how it's all going to get twisty in there. So orange, white, orange, green, white, blue, blue, white, green, brown, white, brown. Okay, so this is the order. So now what I like to do is I like to kind of just squeeze them and bring them together. So I'm using I'm using my left hand to keep them in the right order. And then I use my right hand to kind of bring them together. And let's check to make sure I have them in the right order. Nope. Looks like I got nope, the blue and the blue white are in the wrong order. All right, let's try that again. All right, so give it a little bit of generate some heat in there, get a little bit of a friction. Okay, so if you have the connector where you push the wires through and then crimp and cut it off, you'd be pushing them through now. If you're good enough and you could press these wires together and make sure they're in the right order, you can actually press them through the interconnector all at once. And just as you would the connector that doesn't have the interconnector. Okay, so I'm going to be doing two at a time. So, well, this is important. So what you want to do is you want to make sure the connector or the inner thing that you're pressing the wires through is in the right orientation. So you can see the ridge, So you can see the ridge on the back goes into the connector at the back and on the top. So you want to make sure that your inner core you want to make sure you're passing the wires through the inner core in the right direction. Okay, so you see it lines up here. So we want to make sure that the orange white is on the left. So you can see the connector, they kind of have a down, up, down, up, down, up. So knowing that, you kind of want to go in at like a diagonal angle. So let's grab the first two wires. And you kind of want to hold it at a little bit of an angle and shove these two wires through. And there you go. You might want to bend these over so they don't come back out again as you're trying to do the next ones. So let's do the next one, green, white, blue. Okay, here's our green, white, blue. Again, hold them at an angle. If the ends are a little dull or not straight, you might want to just cut them off with a wire cutter. You'll get a nice clean end, and then they go through easier. All right, so I'll use my needle nose here to kind of help me pass this thing down. All right, the whole point is to get this all the way down here. So we're going to take this, we're kind of going to roll it over. Oh, there goes the brown again. What? I'm not doing a great job here. All right, let's try that again. All right, there we go. So you might have to wiggle it. Sometimes it go back and forth, kind of bend the wire back and forth. It depends how straight the wires were to begin with. Okay, that's as far as we need to go. So if you imagine this is inside of it, this point here is what's going to crimp down on the cable and hold the connector on. Now, the other thing I know is that this big heavy-duty cable is too big for this connector. So what I need to do is I need to like pre-squish this section here. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a squeeze. And you definitely want to do that in parallel with the connector because it's going to go on like that. So I pre-squeezed just to make it a little bit flatter. Let's make sure we have the wires in the right order. And then let's cut this off. So when I cut these off, these are definitely going to go flying across the room. So you want to make sure you don't have like a computer open somewhere, because you don't want to have little pieces of wires floating inside your computer. Okay, so let's put that on. You can see the inner thing needs to go all the way to the tip. And you can see here that the crimp point is on the cable and all the ends are at the tip. So again, double check, make sure you have the right order. And then let's use our crimper. Let's see, wrong side. Let's put that on and just crimp down. And there you go. And then let's go ahead and test this. Let's see, where's the other end? Here's the one I just did before. And we'll turn this on. Okay, we got all 8 wires. We got green lights. Oh, wait a second. 1, 3, 4, 5. Oh, no. Oh, this is not good. Okay, well, it's a good thing I have this cable tester, because I now discovered that wire 2 is not working. Highly recommend a cable tester, as this would be rather aggravating when you plug this in. It would probably work because the blue and the green wires are the ones that are in use, but if you tried anything like a power over Ethernet or something like that, you would be very frustrated to discover that it wouldn't work. Well, thank you for watching. Looks like I'm going to be putting on another connector. Have a good day.